Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and the 1.3 test server went up this week. So let's take a look to see what we have to look forward to in World of Tanks, probably starting in early December. First up, I want to talk about one of the coolest features that Wargaming are adding in, and that is that you can fully customize emblems on your vehicle of various sizes for the first time. So the way that this works is different than putting emblems on your tank, for example. If you want to put a rhinoceros there and a rhinoceros on the other side, that's fine. This is actually a decals section, and there are specific places that you can put them over your tank. For example, maybe you want to be the Soviet Mishka, where you can whack one on the top of your vehicle. One thing you can also do is decide on how big you want the decal to be. Do you want it to be really big or quite small? Up to you. There are different positions you can put these decals. For example, have a big wolf on the back of your vehicle. Where's the crosshair for artillery to try and hit you, right? And while it looks like you can only have 2 on your vehicle at any one time, and there are 4 different sections on the IS-3A, for example, where you can place them, this is definitely a really cool feature that I've personally been asking for years. To make us feel more individual and allow Wargaming to monetize their game without incorporating pay-to-win elements. Now, apparently these customizations are going to only be available for tier 8 and tier 10 tanks. But as we saw, for example, with the style options originally only being available on tier 8 and tier 10 tanks, this is likely to be something that Wargaming probably moves to other vehicles in hopefully the upcoming patches as well. On different tanks, the decals are going to be in different position, and of course on a vehicle like the mouse, when you turn the turret, you're going to be cutting some of them in half, which could look really cool with some of the designs. And while it personally baffles me that it's taken pretty much 8 years of release now on the Russian server for this to become a reality, I guess it's a case of better late than never, right? Next up, it seems like Wargaming have listened to how outrageous the time requirements are to complete the first part of the second season of personal missions. And that's because they're substantially reducing the amount of games that you're going to have to play to be able to get through some of them. For example, look at this. Union 7, a heavy blow to medium tanks where you have to destroy 15 medium tanks on the enemy team. Well, now you only have to kill 10. That's definitely a step in the right direction. And interestingly enough, the multiplier for when you complete the bonus objective of dealing 2,000 damage to a vehicle now will increase the number of kills that you get by 3. So in theory, if you have a really good game now and you kill 3 or 4 medium tanks on the enemy team and do 2,000 damage, you can complete it in a single game. And while this doesn't exactly fix some of the outrageous requirements that Wargaming want you to do, for example, playing French artillery to splash multiple targets, which is unbelievably garbage, and frankly is just forcing you to have to unlock multiple different tank types down multiple different tech trees if you want to take part in what should be an addition to the game that makes it more fun for everybody. At least now, if it's not too late for you and you've been bothering to grind these over the last few months, like me, it should save you a substantial amount of time. Next up, maps. There's going to be a brand new one called Hinterland. However, disappointingly, at least for me, it's only going to be available inside the Grand Battles game mode, so I couldn't really care. I don't like the game mode. 30 versus 30, all tier 10 just didn't work out. Well, at least in my opinion, and while it's a valiant effort by Wargaming to try and fix the problem with their 357 template system by taking lots and lots of tier 10 tanks out of the matchmaker, it's just not the World of Tanks that I personally have known and loved playing over the last few years. Now let's look at some reworks of the maps, and some of these are actually really awesome. For example, on Himmelsdorf, they've created a barrier to allow the northern team to sneak up. Brilliant change by you, Wargaming. It was absolutely horrific how the southern team here had a lovely shallow gradient that they could go hold down on, and then the barrier that came out here would protect them. It just allowed them to dominate, and there was far too much damage taken by the enemy team to have to try and push from here into this location to then make a defense. It also looks like Wargaming are helping out the northern team who want to fight down the Banana Alley, as there's a new rubble pile that sticks out that is going to make it easier to come round a corner and only have to expose your turret and not have to side scrape. In addition to this, down the 1-2 line, Wargaming are moving the kind of window that you shoot through here by the looks of it. So this should provide you with more protection from getting nailed from this location, especially as you cross along here, and allow you to be a little bit more defensive around this area. Next up on Pilsane, Wargaming are adding structures at this location in the map, so tank destroyers can hide around here and probably get chancy shots on people that make their way along this line and push through here. Rubble heaps have been moved around at location 2 that you can see here, and for some reason there's another one on this map, and I guess that's because Wargaming are adding structures in this location as well. I guess they really want you to hang around at the back of the map and snipe, but I don't know, I felt personally that those positions were already quite strong for doing that anyway. Next up, towards the north of the map at section 3, another structure has been added, and they're also suggesting that they've removed the lowland in this part of the map. Does that mean that you're no longer going to be able to go into the dip to use that position to go hold down against this whole area? We'll have to wait and see. And at position 4, Wargaming have apparently adjusted the positions of the coal heaps to provide protection from people who are shooting you from the center of the map, and they've tried to balance out this linear corridor fight down the east, although I personally found that was one of the most fun fights on this map for a light tank or a medium tank getting vision. Next, some interesting changes on Mannerheim Line, where they've apparently improved the defensive position at the balcony by reducing the number of places that you'll be exposed to fire. But I personally thought that this was probably one of the most important locations on the map, and for it to be buffed will probably just encourage people to camp around this location even more and wait for the enemy to advance around here, rather than trying to get into this location and actually push the tempo. Next up, they've removed a pillbox from this location to allow you to advance up to this area more easily, made the rock bigger here and added bushes to allow you to defend better, which they've also done in this location with more bushes for concealed positions. Again, I don't understand why this needed to be the case. I personally found that this location was very easy to defend, and really the part of the map that I would think that needed to be focused on was the fact that the northern team could just get down here so easily and then kind of camp it out. And finally, they've added in an intermediate position so that you can still defend yourself as a tank destroyer if the enemies take this bank underneath you, and also in this location as well. So all in all, the northeastern team is going to have a big advantage on this map, something that I didn't really see needing happening, but we'll just have to wait and see. Alright, Fisherman's Bay, a map where there has been huge changes in 1.0 earlier this year. They removed all of the buildings in this location, which they've added back in, and they removed huge amounts of the bushes at these two locations here. So this is basically going to stop players from just sitting in this location and getting huge amounts of crossfire along here. Now what players are going to do is not just sit in the bushes at 5, they're going to try and push the tempo at 3 and try and extend the view range out along here. What they've also done is made it so that if you do manage to make your way through the town, that the positions marked as 6 on the map have additional cover, so I guess you can consolidate your position here and then mount an attack from it, or alternatively defend from this location better if the enemies take the western flank and advance across. Wargaming have also apparently fortified the access routes to the town along this part of the map, but I don't see why people didn't just go back and go around the long way. All this really does is allow them to take the shortcut into the town. And finally, they've improved defensive locations at 2 and 4 and prevented shoot-throughs. So all in all, it looks like Wargaming are trying to encourage you to go into the town and fight, and then sit on this very well protected mid-ridge here. All in all, very interesting changes, and we're just going to have to see how they work out on the live server. A passing mention should be made to the fact that they have included extra filters in the store, and so if you want to look for specific equipment bundles, that is going to be available for you. And alternatively, if you're going to activate some of your personal reserves, you've now got filters for the amount of time duration that you want to see. And yeah, that's right, I've still got 2 archaic 6-hour plus 5% bonuses that I'm just keeping for the lols. For just health purposes, I'm glad that Wargaming no longer have those in the game, right? Next up, Wargaming are revisiting 2 of the reward tanks from the first season of personal missions, namely the T-55A and the Object 260. So let's see what exactly they've done. Firstly, the T-55A has had its penetration on its standard rounds buff from 201 up to 221, which should stop you from having to dab that 2 key a little bit more in your T-55A, as everybody knows just how expensive those heat rounds can be and how useless the standard penetration was when you got yourself into those tier 9 and tier 10 games. Also, there's been a nice improvement to the shell velocity of the standard rounds of the T-55A, which should make it much better at sniping with standard ammunition at long ranges. There have also been enhancements to the gun handling of this tank, with the aim time being improved to 2 seconds, and importantly, the turret reverse dispersion from 0.12 down to 0.1, which should make this vehicle so much better for snapshotting. And also, the engine power of this tank has been dramatically increased from just under 15.5 up to 20, with a marginal increase to its hit points, and also the turret armor of this vehicle has been substantially buffed to resemble that of a T-54. And so, really good news for T-55A drivers out there. Your vehicle is going to be way better with standard ammunition, it's going to be better with its regard to its gun handling, it's going to be faster, and it's going to be stronger hull down. And considering you don't really see too many of these inside the matchmaker anymore, if you've got one lying around, it'll definitely be worth dusting one off. And if you've got a few more missions to complete for the first set of personal missions, especially now that Wargaming are removing the platoon requirements, then maybe it's time to get on it. Next up, the final reward tank, the Object 260, is also being being revamped with a rate of fire increase up to 5.45 rounds a minute and a dramatic quality of life enhancement to the tank, increasing its ammo capacity from 30 to 40. This is huge because one of the highlights of this tank is of course that it gets APCR as its standard rounds. These are very nice APCR rounds with 1,259 meters a second shell velocity, so you want to take a lot of them. But of course, that won't really hold up in your tier 10 matchups trying to go through the front of a mouse turret, so you'd have to take quite a few heat rounds as well, and you'd quite often run out towards the end of the battle and find yourself awkwardly having to fire heat rounds against sometimes lower tier tanks, and that's probably not going to be the case now as your potential damage will be over 17,500. Next up, massive buffs to the gun handling of this tank with 2.2 seconds aim time and 0.06 turret traverse dispersion. That is going to make this thing snapshot better than an SDB1. This is going to be way better gun handling than most of the medium tanks that you have at tier 9 and a few of them at tier 10. Combine this with one extra degree of gun depression and a little bit of a buff to the accuracy, and the Object 260 is looking like it's going to be better than ever. Well, definitely better than ever, but also a real heavy medium powerhouse in the next patch of World of Tanks. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I've been saving the best or arguably the most controversial change that will be coming in update 1.3 for last, and that is the IS-3A. Now, when this vehicle was originally released, the A stood for auto reloader, and I believe this tank came out in the advent calendar of, was it 2015 or 2016? Not many people picked one up, and that's because frankly, apart from having APCR as standard rounds, everything else about the tank was pretty horrific and just couldn't really stack up to the Defender that I believe came after. However, of course, now with the fairly recent addition of the Italian tanks to the game and the auto-reloading mechanic that they have brought along with them, yeah, the IS-3A, I guess, is getting the whole reason why the vehicle was first introduced. Now, the only two things that are changing about this vehicle is it's getting an aim time buff from 3.4 seconds to 3 seconds, which significantly helps the vehicle out. But importantly, its 122mm main armament is going to be able to load up to 3 shells into the magazine individually. Now, this 122mm auto reloader currently has a 3-second delay between the shots, so this thing isn't exactly going to be bursting you down too quick, and that's a substantial amount of time to be able to either pull back around the corner or track it and get out of harm's way. But that's still better than, for example, the AMX 5120 at tier 9, which has a 120mm autoloader with, I believe, 3.33 seconds delay between its 400 alpha damage. But the crazy thing about this auto reloader is, unlike the Italian tanks, which progressively take longer and longer and longer to reload the more shells you fire, this tank works in reverse. It actually reloads faster the less shells you've got in the magazine, with the third shell taking 18 seconds to reload, the second shell taking 15 seconds to reload, and if you want to put one shell in the tank, it takes 12 seconds. Now that means that the IS-3A is far worse for weakening a target until it's within a single magazine unload and then going in for the kill, while it's far better for kind of barging in there, firing all the rounds that it has, and then reloading the single shell that it needs to hopefully be able to finish off the target. Or alternatively, when it has to bleed its whole magazine dry and then continue fighting for a long period of time in those brawling situations. But I'm going to leave this one for an entire dedicated video, as I'm still trying to get ideas about whether I think that this is a balanced mechanic to have on a premium heavy tank at tier 8. And I'm also looking to see if Wargaming are going to be adjusting the stats of this, as they likely do with all of the test server iterations that usually come every week or two before the release. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is what we have to look forward to for 1.3. Yeah, considering it's getting close to Christmas, I guess this is most of the Christmas content. I can't really see the wheeled vehicles, even though I really hope they do arrive in time for Christmas, actually coming out. But then again, we're just going to have to wait and see, and hopefully I've been a good boy this year and Papa Serb is going to bless me with content. I'm just not sure. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for my 1.3 test server preview. And stay tuned to the channel, as I will be doing a kind of a full preview of the IS-3 and what I think about its auto reloading mechanics in the upcoming week. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about all of the changes upcoming in update 1.3. What do you think about the decals? What do you think about the IS-3A autoloader? Are you a T55A driver or an Object 260 driver who can't wait for those changes? What do you think about the maps as well? So much to talk about. And if you've enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. But if you hated it, make sure you give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.